going to go into a third part of the fallen kingdom, and it's probably the last. This part begins where we left off on how we acclimated into the system. Before we start, we're going to pray into it, but we're going to do a quick recap, and then we're going to go right into it, how this aftershock is going to move us right into the final end-time event. First of all, I want to thank everyone who got on the call. So we're going to do a quick recap of what we did yesterday. I mean, not yesterday, last call. Last two calls, we saw that we were a fallen kingdom. The first call was about us being a fallen kingdom. We fell away from the Most High and wanting Him to be our righteous ruler. Therefore, we rejected His kingdom and His law. We decided to choose earthly kings over ourselves, even though the Most High reigned over us. These earthly kings later on led us into sin, which eventually led to the captivity of the 12 tribes. The 12 tribes moved. If you read it in Second Esdras 13:40 through 45, you'll see that the 10 tribes or 9 tribes went earlier to the Americas and on boats through the Euphrates River around Africa. They also went towards Australia, Samoan Isles, as well as the Americas and the Caribbean. We came, Judah, Benjamin, and Levi came later to the Americas, and we were enslaved. There, we chose, after we were free, to be acclimated into the system or to conform to the system rather than leave it completely. And we were led by leaders who led us astray. Get Isaiah 9:16. These leaders led us astray, bringing us into the very same system in which had enslaved us later on, only to get more injustice from these systems, the system of Babylon and the system of the beast.
The book of Isaiah, chapter 9, verse 16. For the leaders of this people cause them to err, and they that are led of them are destroyed.
So we see that our leaders have caused us to err, destroyed by joining into the system. Excuse me. So today we're going to be going into how going into the system allowed us, how going to the system had an aftershock that would be detrimental to the tribe of Judah. And as follows, when the leader goes down, the other tribes will go down with him. So whatever they're going to do to Judah, they're going to do the same thing or worse to the other tribes.
We're going to go to the scriptures. We're going to go to Daniel 7 and 25. Where we'll see this system and what it will do to us once we conform to its nature. All right, read it.
The book of Daniel, chapter 7, verse 25.
No, 24.
Oh, verse 24. In the book of Daniel, chapter 7, verse 24. And the 10 horns out of this kingdom are 10 kings that shall rise, and another shall rise after them. He shall be called, and he shall be diverse from the first. And he shall subdue 3 kings.
Wait, read that again. Read it again.
And the 10 horns out of this kingdom are 10 kings that
read it.
That shall rise, and another shall rise after them. And he shall be diverse from the first, and he shall subdue 3 kings.
Read on. 25.
And he shall speak great words against the Most High, and shall wear out the saints of the Most High, and think to change times and laws, and they shall be given unto his hand until a time and times, and the dividing of time.
So this is speaking of the 10 horns in which created or rebuilt the ancient Roman Empire. If you watch if you listen to Babylon Unveiled, our last call, no, not our last call, one of our earlier calls, you'll see these 10 horns. And there was one that was diverse from the others who subdued 3 of the other horns, which would be Britain, Spain, and France, which are part of the Roman Empire, and he had subdued them, and they fled from his territory. Later on, this little horn would go on to take the saints, which are holy ones, or those who are set apart. He would take them and he would subdue them, and even try to change times and laws. So he would make war with us during this time when we were inside of his kingdom. This little horn is Babylon. So we're going to go to Ephesians. We're going to see how these people destroyed us. So go to Ephesians chapter 5, verse 23. In this process of destroying a nation, you have to, if you destroy the smallest unit at a large amount, you'll sooner or later destroy the whole. So the beast system wanted to destroy the family unit of Israel. That is the smallest unit. If you destroy every single family unit of a kingdom, and put them in confusion, the nation automatically is in confusion. So how they did it, we'll read in Ephesians 5:23, or who they had to get rid of to do this. Read it, Ephesians 5:23.
The book of Ephesians chapter 5, verse 23. And it reads, For the husband is the head of the wife, even as Yeshua is the head of the church, and he is the Savior of the body.
It says the husband is the head of the wife. If you get rid of the husband, you get rid of the power or the leadership of the house. If you do that, then you will throw the entire house into confusion. So let's go to Matthew 26:31. Now, what will happen if you get rid of, strike down, or get rid of this leader of the family household? How will this destroy this family unit? Later, we'll go into how they got rid of the leader of the household and see what the detrimental effects were of getting rid of him. You got it, Matthew 26:31? All right, then read.
The book of Matthew, chapter 26, verse 31. Then saith Yeshua unto them, Ye shall be offended because of me this night, for it is written, I will smite the shepherd, and the sheep of the flock shall be scattered abroad.
He said he would smite the shepherd. So if Yeshua is the shepherd of the church, then the husband is the shepherd of the household. So what they're going to do is smite, not really the powers, but the Most High allowed this because we didn't follow his commands. The Most High is going to smite the shepherd of the household. Get Isaiah 42:22. After Martin Luther King and the civil rights movement got us into this system, the Babylonian system, we later on found ourselves poor and impoverished. But also, the government system would try to get rid of the father of the home through incarceration. There is many men incarcerated during this time. Read it, Isaiah 42:22.
The book of Isaiah, chapter 42, verse 22. But this is a people robbed and spoiled. They are all of them snared in holes, and they are hid in prison houses. They are for a prey, and none delivereth, for a spoil, and none saith, Restore.
This is us going into prison houses. And if you read it in Revelations 2 and 10, we're not going to read that today, But in Revelations 2:10, he said, don't be afraid, because Satan will throw many of you into prisons. Matthew 15:24 said that Yeshua only came for the children of Israel. So in Revelations, he is talking to you. And if you look at it, you'll see that the majority of the incarcerated in America is the blacks, Hispanics, and other of the minorities of the Americas. They pay $100,000 per inmate or per prisoner so that they can make sure that Israel stays down and in prison. And even when you come out of this imprisonment, it will be very difficult for you to get a job. They made it increasingly difficult for someone who was an ex-con to be able to come back in the system. So let's get it in Revelations 2 and 9. Get it? Revelations 2 and 9.
The book of Revelations, chapter 2, verse 9. I know thy works, and tribulation, and poverty, but thou art rich. And I know the blasphemy of them that say they are Jews, and are not, but are the synagogue of Satan.
He says he knows our tribulations, and he knows our poverty. This is how you know that this is Israel. Because Israel would be in poverty. During the whole time of the false Jews, so say, the false Jews were dispersed out of the land of Israel. They were not poor. Actually, they were taking over great systems like Russia and Germany. And the Americas, to an extent, they control a lot of the media, the banking system, the financial system of America. Get it in Deuteronomy 28 and 43. So now we see that we are poor inside of this system. But in Deuteronomy 28:43, he tells us that we're going to be poor because of our sin. And because of this poverty, we'll have no choice but to succumb to this system in which will lend a hand, lend a hand to help us out. So Deuteronomy 28 and 43. Deuteronomy 28:43. Read.
The book of Deuteronomy, chapter 28, verse 43. The stranger that is within thee shall get up above thee very high, and thou shalt come down very low.
He said that the stranger that's within us will become very high. All other nations are strangers to us as far as being a part of us or a part of Israel. So if you're a part of another nation, you're a stranger. So anybody that comes into this Babylon system will automatically be more successful than these slaves. Now, we read earlier that we would be incarcerated, mass incarceration. So now this mass incarceration was also a helping hand in us being poor. Because if you're incarcerated, it makes it increasingly difficult for you to be able to find a job. So read the next verse, Deuteronomy 28, verse 44.
In the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 28, verse 44. And he shall lend to thee, and thou shalt not lend to him. And he shall be the head, and thou shalt be the tail.
Through this, the government was able, not the government, the powers, the shadow governments, and those, Satan basically, would be able to use this poverty to lend a helping hand, like welfare, like, what's that one, child...
care support.
child support and stuff like that, where you would have to get rid of the husband, the leading unit of the house, in order to get some of these subsidies. Also, the Native Americans, when they were inside of this land by themselves, I'm going to call them what it is, Gad. When Gad was here, Gad had the increase of this land. Later on, the Most High brought Deuteronomy 28, verse 33, where he said that they would take the fruit of their land. Now Gad is also dependent on them. And also those who are in poverty inside of the South South America, the Caribbeans, and anybody that is impoverished inside of anywhere where this beast system reigns supreme. So they give us money in order for us to do their will. They give us money or food or anything we need because we're low, and we have no choice but to succumb to their will. Get Leviticus 18:22. So now we're going to see the backlash of either this incarceration or the borrowing, us borrowing, being poor and borrowing from these people, and getting the husband out the house, getting the father unit out the house. What would this do to the family unit? First, we're going to go into how would this affect the son of the unit? Because if you destroy the next generation, all the other generations will follow. It was Deuteronomy 32:7. Deuteronomy 32:7. We're going to see the detriment of what happens when you take the father out of this, and how it will help in the destruction of Israel while we're in this system. Okay, read. Deuteronomy 32:7.
The book of Deuteronomy, chapter 32, verse 7. Remember the days of old, and consider the years of many generations. Ask thy father, and he will show thee, thy elders, and they will tell thee.
If you have no father in the home, who are you going to ask for instruction if you are a male child? If there's no father in the home, who's going to lead you and teach you how to act as a man? If there's only your mother to learn from. Okay, get Proverbs 1:8. This is how they're going to destroy us. If you get rid of the father, you don't know how to learn wisdom from the Most High. You don't know how to learn how to keep the commandments of the Most High. You don't know how to be righteous in this society. Because if you get rid of the father, there's no one left to teach the son how to be righteous.
The book of Proverbs, chapter 1, verse 8. My son, hear the instruction of thy father, and forsake not the law of thy mother.
He said, my son, hear the instruction of your father, and forsake not the law of your mother. If you get the man out of the house, there is no instruction from your father. And the reason why he says, my son, hear the instruction of your father, is because your father will instruct you in the way of manhood. Let's see what happens if you take the manhood out of the house. What commandment will it make the son to go against if you take the father out of the house? And how will this affect Israel as a whole? Because if you do, they're not going to only do it in one family, they're going to do it in several. Get it. Leviticus 18:22.
The book of Leviticus, chapter 18, verse 22. Thou shalt not lie with mankind as with womankind. It is an abomination.
It is an abomination for a man to lie with another man. But if you have no father to teach you this, if you have no father to teach you the instruction of manhood, then you will succumb to this, because society An evil society will teach you to do this. If your father's not there, society will teach you. School will teach you. And TV, media, programming will also teach you to go against this. If you go on, if you're a youth, please get your parents' permission. But if you go on YouTube as an adult, if you go on YouTube, you can look up how they are putting subliminal messages. Subliminal messages are small cuts of a message in which you can put inside of a video or audio in which no one can see, and then you'll secretly be programming them. They can't see it, but the subconscious of your mind can read or see those messages. So if you go on YouTube, you can look up how they are putting homosexual subliminal messages inside of these media programs, which is leading them to go against Leviticus 18:22, therefore making us to fall. And if you keep us fallen, we can still be a slave to Satan's system, Babylon. All right. So we need to understand, how else will this destroy us? Well, media doesn't only teach you to become a homosexual. It also teaches you to be lewd and violent, stealing, killing. It promotes sexual activity and fighting amongst the brethren. Get Isaiah 3:5 and 3 and 5.
The book of Isaiah, chapter 3, verse 5. The real one. And the people shall be oppressed, every one by another, and every one by his neighbor. The child shall behave himself proudly against the ancient, and the base against the honorable.
So how would this happen? Brother killing brother. You got children oppressing Israel. And then you got youth being proud against the ancient. And if you read in Leviticus the 19th chapter, you can read the whole thing, but if you read Leviticus in the 19th chapter, and I think it's the 32nd verse, Leviticus the 19th chapter, the 32nd verse, it says not to be proud against the ancient. It says to honor the ancient and gray-headed. So how would we end up going against this? Well, the answer is simple. Society and their music. There was, I don't remember what time it was, but before my time, there was a ramping up of music inside of the black community. It was called hip-hop. Originally, it was a rebellion against the system, even though they were following other gods. But originally, it was a rebellion against the system. Later on, the shadow government and the powers that be infiltrated rap music. And they would later use it to promote drugs, murder, stealing, and crime of all kinds, which would also bring the incarceration rate up as well. They also would promote sex and other. This is how Deuteronomy 3 and 5 is fulfilled. Society, if the father's not in the home, society will teach the son. And the music industry is one way that they teach the youth to go against the Most High. Get Isaiah 3:12. 3:12. Isaiah 3:12.
The book of Isaiah, chapter 3, verse 12. And it reads, As for my people, children are their oppressors, and women rule over them. O my people, which led thee, cause thee to err, and destroy the way of thy path.
So now you see how this acclimating, conforming to this Babylonian system, which was created by Satan, how going into this system would destroy us. Now the Most High said, if my people who are called by my name will humble themselves and pray, I will come to them and heal their land. At this time, before we try to come even further into the system, we had already suffered enough curses in order to prove that we are Israel. The Native Americans got their land taken. They got the what is it called? The disease, smallpox. We got taken over the waters. They got the 10 tribes got killed in mass slaughter. I mean, we already fulfilled enough of these to show that we are the people. But when we decided to still choose the world, as in lesson 1 and 2 of the fallen kingdom, we would suffer even more curses. So Isaiah 3:12 says that children are their oppressors. That's where that's the gangs and drug dealing and shooting and black on black crime, as inside of Isaiah 3:5, brother against brother. So now we see this is a prophecy of what would happen, the destruction of Israel from the inside out. And the system would use our own people to do it. All these black stars, so-called black stars, joining these fraternities like OTO, which would later lead to Masonry, and then the Illuminati, which is just the shadow government which controls the whole world under Satan, would later use their music to turn Israel even further. So we're going to move on to see how did this affect the female of the family. Well, when the father was outside of the home like they wanted by making us, incarcerating us, or making it difficult for us to get jobs and making us increasingly impoverished, and then lending to us for the small fee of getting the father out of the home, we would see that it would not only affect the son, but it would also affect the daughter. Because without the father in the home, sometimes subsidies aren't enough. So the woman also has to leave the home. So both son and daughter have no choice but to be taught by the system, school systems. You think it's a coincidence that they got this thing called Common Core now, with their sex ed teaching both homosexual and what is it called, straight sex? I mean, it's bad enough that our women are getting pregnant out of wedlock, but now you got it where they're also teaching homosexuality through the system. Get Romans 1:16. We're going to see how this affected the daughter. Because if the father had to leave, the mother had to leave too, some of the time, because she needed to be able to find some way outside of the subsidies to be able to provide for her children. Romans 1:27.
The book of Romans,
1:26.
chapter 1, verse 26. For this is the cause Ahiah gave them up to vile affections. For even their women did change the natural use into that which is against nature. So it reads, without the mother in the home, the daughter is taught by society as well, going into the same sin as the son. Because remember, the male is the leader. So if the man goes and does this sin of same sex, then the woman will as well. The system's going to make sure that it happens on both sides. So that's not all. Let's get in Leviticus 19:29. How else would this affect the woman of the household? I mean, not the woman, the daughter of the household. Through this, he would destroy the family, destroy the next generation,
you destroy a kingdom society, because the cycle sometimes is unending. Leviticus 19 and 29.
The book of Leviticus, chapter 19, verse 29. And it reads, do not prostitute thy daughter to cause her to be a whore, lest the land fall into whoredom, and the land become full of wickedness.
So the women would also succumb to whoredom as well. This is what the system would teach them. This is what happens when we decide to conform to that which is against the Most High. Even though we didn't know it at the time, we had leaders like Malcolm X which were saying, you need to leave. Even though he was in Islam, later on he did leave Islam. But he was teaching, we got to get out of here. But we were all moved by people like Martin Luther King, who said, hey, I had a dream. And when his dream came true, he said, yeah, let's get in this system. So we're going to get in Deuteronomy 28 and 53. Through this whoredom, we would have the sin of fornication. And our brothers whose father left the house, who society to do violence and to go against the Most High through the music industry and other tools of the society, they would use their sisters to also get what they wanted sexually from what they've been taught from their societal father. So you got it, Deuteronomy 28, verse 53.
The book of Deuteronomy, chapter 28, verse 53.
Okay. Read.
Excuse us. The book of Deuteronomy, chapter 28, verse 54. So that the man that is tender among you and very delicate, his eye shall be evil towards his brother, and toward the wife of his bosom, and toward the remnant of his children, which he shall leave.
In Deuteronomy 28, verse 54, it says that these fathers would begin to leave their children through the whoredom which was taught to the daughters who also had fatherless/motherless homes, not really motherless, but mothers that were always working. This would have them doing whoredom, and through that they would have babies through and fornication, and these fathers would care nothing for the woman nor their children. This is the second generation after the incarceration and after the government subsidies. That's the first father that got out. His children succumbed to homosexuality or society's teaching of the hood life, and their daughters to whoredom, and then the second generation has children, and the third generation, their fathers say, hey, look, I don't want nothing to do with it. And the children that came out of this second generation would also do the same. If you read in Exodus 20 and 5, the Most High said, those who refuse to obey his law, for those who are against him, he would make the sins of the parents go to the third and fourth generation. And that's in Exodus 20 and 5. Ephesians 6 and 4. Get Ephesians 6 and 4. It says, do not provoke your children to anger. Fathers, do not provoke your children to anger. Now you got Jermaine looking over at Charlie, hey, Ma, how come he got a dad? Where's mine? because this system knew how to crack down on us. All they needed us to do was conform to the system. For us to come into this very same system, which just a while ago was destroying us. Satan knew that this would destroy this people. All right, get it? You got it? Ephesians 6:4. Ephesians 6:4.
Read. The book of Ephesians, chapter 6, verse 4. And ye fathers, provoke not your children to wrath, but bring them up in the nurture and admonition of the highest.
Through the leaving of their children, they would provoke them to anger. And this is the third generation. Slowly, through this operation, they would destroy us. And if you do this to enough homes, the society will go down. Get it in Deuteronomy 28 and 28. What would this do to the so-called African American society and the societies of those in South America? Wait. I also want to touch up on what else would happen to those children who came from the homes of those fathers who left them. Get in Deuteronomy, the one where it says, "Cursed be the fruit of your womb."
Again, the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 28, verse 18. And it reads, Cursed shall be the fruit of thy body, and the fruit of thy land, and the increase of thine offspring, and the flocks of thy sheep.
He said, cursed be the body. This is the main point we want to focus on. These women or teenagers, girls, in which were impregnated through these not through wedlock, against wedlock. These women would begin to go to this system called abortion. The government says you have the right to choose. You also had the right to choose at that time not to sin. Now, a baby isn't punishment, but it is a consequence. You fornicate, you have now the responsibility of little Jermaine. But instead, the government says you have the right to choose, and they came up with a system of abortion.
The book of Deuteronomy, chapter 28, verse 28. Ahai shall smite thee with madness and blindness and with an astonishment of heart.
He said that he would smite us with madness and blindness. The madness is the destruction of our society. They call it ghetto. They call us ghetto, out of our minds, crazy. Blindness. That is spiritual blindness. They talk about it inside of Romans. He says, but only a remnant. Inside Romans, a remnant would receive this. Romans 11:7 says that Romans 11:6 says part of Israel would receive, but the other would receive blindness. You're spiritually blind, and you have a physical madness. Read.
The book of Deuteronomy, chapter 28, verse 59 through verse 61. And they read, Then Ahai will make thy plagues wonderful, and the plagues of thy seed even great. Plagues and of long continuance, and sore sicknesses, and of long continuance. Moreover, he will bring down all the diseases of Egypt which thou wast afraid of, and they shall cleave unto thee. Also every sickness and every plague which is not written in the book of this law, them will Ahai bring upon thee, until thou beest destroyed.
This is talking about different diseases which would come from us going into this system. So let's see. They're pumping us in West Africa full of vaccines. The powers just made it legal inside of America that there will be a mandatory vaccine probably in the next year or next few months. There will be a mandatory vaccine that you must take. And all these vaccines are doing is getting us sick. But also, this mandatory vaccine says your children can't go to school, and you can't get child support or certain subsidies that go to the child unless you take this vaccine. They're going to soon swap that out with the mark of the beast. They're already implementing it inside of Obamacare. But with this mandatory vaccine, they're going to say, okay, no more vaccine. Now we're just going to swap the script, and now we have a mandatory chip to make sure that everybody inside the system has been ID'd. Then you can go about getting our support. So get Leviticus 19 and 19. So how else did they destroy us? How else did they get us sick and full of disease and destroyed with all these diseases like diabetes and AIDS and other? Well, first of all, they promote GMO products throughout the system. And inside of Leviticus 19, the Most High says, do not do so. And these same products are causing us to become sick, and they're destroying us. They're making us fat, lazy, and what is it called? Subtle or something like, not subtle. Basically soft. What is the word? No. But it's basically keeping us down and subjected. So read that, Leviticus 19:19. Read.
The book of Leviticus, chapter 19, verse 19. Ye shall keep my statutes. Thou shalt not let thy cattle gender with a diverse kind. Thou shalt not sow thy field with a mingled seed. Neither shall garment mingled of linen and woolen come upon thee.
Now he said, you shall not mix your cattle, your seed, or your clothes. We're going to focus on the animal and the seed. GMO is going directly against Leviticus 19 and 19. Through this, we are forming addictions to this food and to this system. And if you are controlled by some of these addictions like sugar, MSG, corn syrup, Monsanto products Tyson. If you're addicted to this, you will willingly give yourself up to the mark of the beast just so you can have it. So they're getting you addicted to this stuff in order that when it comes down to leaving this place or shutting down of this, you would rather take the mark than give up your food. Get Philippians 3:19. It's going to talk about those who are addicted to food. This food not only is getting us addicted, but it also correlates with Deuteronomy 28:59-61, where it says it's giving us multiple diseases. You got it? Leviticus 3:19. Read.
The book of Leviticus, chapter 3, verse 19. Whose end is destruction, whose God is their belly, and whose glory is their shame, who mind earthly things.
He said, whose end is destruction, but those whose belly is their God, and whose belly is their God, and glory in their shame. Earlier we saw that through the destruction of the family, they would have us go into homosexuality, and they're proud. That's the glory in your shame. They're proud about it. They boast about it. They make whole parades about it. And whose God is their belly? Those who are addicted to these GMO foods, these mixed seeds, and those who are refusing to let go of it. Matthew 24:24 said, when this system comes, he says they would even try these anti-messiahs or antichrists, because Paul said there are many antichrists. These antichrists would even try to fool the elect, the remnant of Israel, in which the Most High said he would bring back. He would even be able to try to fool them into taking the evil mark. This downward spiral is leading us to the end time events of us being amalgamated into an even greater destruction than just being destroyed as far as poverty and incarceration goes. Addiction to food. Homosexuals are going to take the mark. Subsidies. You have to feed your family. They're gonna say, well, if you want to feed your family, if you want to get your kid in school, you're gonna have to take this mark. Back then, the father would be in the home and he would provide for you. You would be able to go out there and grow gardens and be self-sufficient. You would be able to learn how to live without this system so that you can be stronger in the Most High, gain spiritual strength with the priests of the home there. But with each generation being destroyed by just getting the father out of the home, by just acclimating into this system, by just listening to false prophets like Martin Luther King, in just 3 generations, they would have us ready. No, probably 5 generations. They would have us ready for the mark. Get Romans 11:7. And we're wrapping up the teaching. But the Most High said, even though Israel seems like it's in the worst state, even though Israel looks like it is beaten beyond its repair, and Israel has been blinded with madness, fatherlessness, poverty, destruction through abortion, even though Israel seems like it cannot be risen again, he says he's going to fix us and bring us back through our Messiah, Yeshua. Get it, Romans 11:7.
The book of Romans, chapter 11, verse 7. And it reads, what then? Israel hath not obtained that which he seeketh for? But the election hath obtained it, and the rest were blinded.
This is the blindness in which I spoke of earlier in Deuteronomy 28, verse 28. Blindness and madness. But he said, has Israel not obtained what it was looking for? No. But the election, the remnant in which the Most High spoke would gain that, first of all, the promise of their forefathers, Abraham, the land forever. Second, the kingdom of the Most High. For our last verse, we're going to go to Jeremiah 2:9, and we're going to open it up for questions. And it's funny how they did all this to us, but still, the Most High says, I'm going to get my remnant. And I'm going to put an end to this madness. They did their very best to destroy us, but yet and still, I see, coming from fatherless homes, some of the best teachers and preachers of the word of the Most High. Okay, you got it? The Most High says he's going to redeem himself a remnant, but before this, we would first have to exit or have an exodus. And if you listen to last call, the exodus was prolonged, or you could say hijacked by false leaders who instead of helping us to get out of this system, they had us go into the system. So we're going to read this Exodus. Get it, read it.
The book of Ezekiel, the prophet, in chapter 20, verse 35. And I will bring you into the wilderness of the people, and there will I plead with you face to face. Verse 36, continuing on. And it reads, like as I pleaded with your fathers in the wilderness of the land of Egypt, so will I plead with you, saith Ahai, your Elohim.
Read on.
And I will cause you to pass under the rod, and I will bring you into the bond of the covenant. He says he's going to take us to the wilderness of the nations. If you think about that, the wilderness of the nations, this means it's going to be the least of the economic grown country. It's going to be the least developed, and all out of all the countries, and this would be that wilderness. And that country is West Africa, the same place in which we were before the Atlantic slave trade. And he said, during that time in this wilderness, he said he would plead with us. You don't see this happening with the fake Jews. He says he's going to cause us to go under the rod. That's the law. We would go under the law for a short time in the wilderness, and he would purge all those who are rebellious and sinful away from us, so that he can get himself a pure remnant, in which would rule with him in 1,000-year reign. And this is what next call is going to be about. Life after Babylon. Life in the wilderness. After the Exodus. So this concludes our call. He says he's going to restore the covenant through us after all this that we went through. They took away our fathers. They made homosexuals out of some of our people. They made us addicted to their food. They got us eating pork, shrimp, crab, lobster. They got us stuck on their subsidies. But above all, the Most High said he's going to raise himself up a remnant through all of that. Like in the valley of dry bones. Can these bones live? All things are possible with the Most High. Praise the Higher. And so that concludes our lesson.
Well, brother, I thank you for the information you shared on the call. And bless you too, brothers, and may y'all continue to go forward in the word.
Thank you. All praise to the Most High. Thank everyone who got on the call. Shalom.